Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
In a world where shadows dance and dreams take flight through the veil of reality into the night, Rob McConnell leads the way, a beacon so bright. With over 35 years, he ignites the light. A voice from the north where whispers are bold, stories untold in the echoes of old. Fact meets fiction in this realm of delight, in the X Zone where dark turns to bright. Welcome to the X Zone, believe and be free, a sanctuary for truth that dare to be seen, where the line between realms gently blurs, in a symphony of voices the mind stirs, with Rob McConnell stories unfold, tales of the unknown that shimmer like gold.
And welcome back, everyone. This is the X Zone. I am Rob McConnell, coming to you from our broadcast center and studios in St. Catharines, Ontario, Canada, on the CanCom Broadcast Network and your hometown radio, Classic 1220, CFAJ AM. And they stream us around the world at classic1220.ca. If you'd like to send me an email, xzone at xzoneradiotv.com, and on all social media sites, Xzone Radio TV. And we're with you Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight. That's Eastern. And if you'd like to listen to any of the past shows that we've done here on the X Zone or any of the other great shows that we produce, all you need to do is go to www.xzbn.net. Well, this hour on the X Zone, we're going to be stepping beyond the veil and into a world where the unexplained becomes reality. Our guest this hour is Dakota Frandsen, paranormal investigator, researcher, and the mind behind baldandbonkers.net. No, I'm serious. That's baldandbonkers.net. No, I'm not joking. Baldandbonkers.net. Now, with a passion for uncovering the truth behind hauntings, strange encounters, and the mysteries that lurk in the shadows, Dakota has dedicated his work to exploring what most people are afraid of, even to question. From ghostly phenomena to the bizarre and downright bonkers, Dakota brings a unique perspective to the paranormal, blending investigation with insight and curiosity with courage and bonkers. Get ready to question everything you thought you knew, because the truth is out there and is waiting. Joining me now is Dakota Frandsen. And Dakota, welcome back to the X Zone. Great having you with us. And I love your website, baldandbonkers.net.
Thanks for having me on again, Rob. And yeah, it's definitely taken a new light since I branded it that way.
That's what it takes these days, huh? You know, Trump was already taken, so I guess you had to go with Bald and Bonkers.
That's very true.
I have no idea why I said that, but it kind of fell into the category of, oh, what the hell, here we go. Dakota, what first sparked your interest in the paranormal?
My interest first sparked from essentially a lifetime of strange experiences that here in recent years, since Bald and Bonkers actually started to take off, had actually been cross-evaluated by university professors, formal naval intelligence, essentially people who have been at this type of stuff for nearly as long as I've been alive, and I just barely turned 30 this year. They would just sit back, even look at some of the stuff I would present as my evidence, and in the words of former naval intelligence officer Dan Willis, his exact words when looking at my case is like, dude, you're just weird.
Well, he could have been weird and bonkers. No. I like
true.
Was there a specific experience that made you say, this is real?
Oh, it was actually a bit of a culmination of different ones, but essentially the main experience, and I believe I've actually talked about this a couple of times I've been on your show, involved what looked to appear to be a time paradox, but has also been theorized to have been extraterrestrial intervention, divine intervention, basically too weird to really ignore. And that was an incident I would call the Olivia paradox.
All right, you've got my interest, and I'm sure everybody else has got their ears to their radio. And by the way, if you're driving on the QEW on your way down to Niagara Falls to the casino, or if you're on your way home back after losing all your money at the casino and you're going back to Toronto to sell your car, don't put your ear to the radio. The police don't like it. So how? What was it about? What was this encounter?
Well, this is where the Bald and Bonkers name starts to shift from kind of a humorous side joke to deep realization. But it actually involved a time where I was young, about 12 years old, and there was something that saved me from making an attempt on my own life, and that was the vision of a little girl who looked almost like a spinning image of myself, who went to approach me, and the one thing that shook me out of that mindset was, "Daddy, please don't do it." Her words.
Okay. Any idea who this vision was?
It's hard to say. I mean, I've had people question that it was extreme psychological fail-safe, for lack of a better word, to pull me out of that spot. And like I said before, there's been individuals who question whether or not it was a meeting with my higher self or time travel even. The thing was, with the time travel theory, when I went to go look into similar reports of people meeting their kids before they were born, the common denominator was that usually, not all the time, but usually the mother was already pregnant. I was 12, Rob. I had a couple more years before I even had a chance with the girl. If there was a woman out there pregnant with my child, some questions needed to be asked.
Either that or cigars and celebration, one of the two. Is it possible that this little girl was, for lack of better words, an angel in a form that you could relate to, and that she in that form would, snap you out of it and bring you to a point where you would say, all right, whoa, what am I doing here?
That has been one of the theories out there, and even with the 13 other eyewitnesses who had no clue about this incident in the first place, who all claimed to not only have seen her, have actually witnessed her potentially protecting them from spiritual attacks, but also capturing her voice on recording, it certainly makes you wonder what else was going on, which was where maybe the theory that started to come around was maybe this was a child of mine from an extraterrestrial other life, for lack of a better word.
Or you were just a horny 12-year-old.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
You said there were other witnesses to this effect, to this encounter, this event. Did they see the same thing that you did?
It wasn't. The 13 witnesses weren't all for the same event. It was separate events, but it's the same being that came forward.
The little girl.
Yeah. It actually came to the point where I was able to utilize artificial intelligence to render a photo of this little girl And just to put it bluntly, had some of these people not been wearing glasses at their time, the shock from seeing a physical image of this young girl would have probably caused their eyes to pop out of their sockets.
So 18 years later, or approximately 18 years later after your first encounter with yourself, are you any closer to getting to what you believe the truth is of the matter, or are you still wondering? And when was the last time you actually had an encounter with this little girl?
There has actually been a string of encounters that happened to where maybe, just maybe, given, and I'm trying to leave a margin for error,
right,
just because of the extreme nature of this and the fact that many of my dates that figured out about this story naturally very concerned about my mental well-being. The mother of the child may have appeared.
Now, the last time you saw the child, was she the same age?
She was
Or does she
older.
get older?
She actually was older. In fact, she was a young woman who got married herself and had a child.
And you say the mother may have appeared?
This is where the story often draws a lot of comparison to like Doctor Who storylines, but there has been a woman who I have been involved with for about 2.5 years now, who has experienced numerous things herself. We've even been on the phone with each other talking about this stuff, and would have UFOs show up in the sky as we're talking on the phone, seemingly trying to confirm that, yeah, we are the meant to be parents.
Stand by. We've got to take our first break, Dakota. Thanks for coming on the show tonight. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about Dakota, visit his website, baldenbonkers.net. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you on the CanCom Broadcast Network and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM here in St. Catharines, streaming at classic1220.ca. Strange things here in the X-Zone, but what we consider to be strange can, in reality, be true. We'll be back. Don't go away.
In a world where shadows dance and dreams take flight through the veil of reality into the night, Rob McConnell leads the way, a beacon so bright. With over 35 years, he ignites the light. A voice from the north where whispers are bold, stories untold in the echoes of old. Fact meets fiction in this realm of delight, in the X-Zone where dark turns to bright. Welcome to the X-Zone, believe and be free, a sanctuary for truth that dare to be seen, where the line between realms gently blurs, in a symphony of voices. Oh. Past midnight on Yates Street, the signal hums low. Static's alive and the shadows glow through the glass of the control room door. Something whispers, we've been here before. Old footsteps echo the real sighs. The red on air, light flickers and dies through the hallway. A chill creeps deep. CKTB never sleeps. Ghosts on Yates Street. Through static and rain, phantoms whisper where the signal bleeds.
Welcome back, everyone. Dakota Frandsen is our special guest. Website is baldandbonkers.net. Now, when you're talking to this lady on the telephone, and and you say that UFOs kind of seem to appear in order to confirm that you two are supposed to be together, do you live in the same area? Do you live in the same city, the same state?
It is a long distance situation. I will say that. So, which adds a little bit of complication, but still, when the craft go to show up, it's shown up for both of us, and there's roughly about a 7-hour time difference between us.
My gosh.
Yeah.
Does this is there any evidence that you had been abducted by aliens earlier in your life? Is there any history of alien abduction within your family?
Yes, and yes, there is. There's a bit of a family story involving my great-grandmother on my father's side, who was allegedly abducted and used for hybridization. Then later on, when apparently the offspring of these experiments started to have a failure to thrive, as they would say in medical circles, they would need mother's milk in order to get what they needed. As for myself, there was an incident, and I would find out years later after the fact that there is actually a report filed with the NUFORC for August of 2002 that lines up with an incident where I ended up 30 miles away from home.
All right, so now I can get a better understanding where, when we started, that this little girl could have been a child of yours, and that where the age of 12 years old for yourself really has no significance if we're talking about a hybrid and an alien abduction earlier on in your youth and possible hybridization of your members of your family. To me, it makes sense.
That's very true.
Yeah. How does it make you feel when you see this child?
Honestly, it's heartwarming in a lot of ways. This child, regardless of what origin this child is, the one thing that dang near everybody can agree on is that the vision of this child served its purpose, and that was to pull me out of a dark spot in my life to where I can grow on and hopefully, and as you can imagine, this probably put a lot of unnecessary stress on my dating life, but hopefully become a man that would be a good father for her, so she would feel compelled to try to save me that day. Hence where paradox comes in.
Here we have
that's how it plays out.
Here you have something where this vision that might have been a holograph actually altered the space-time continuum by saving you.
It is possible, and some of the individuals I've spoken to who've had contacts within the military disclosure movements have said that some of these beings may actually operate from a point in space that's relatively 300 years in our future, but yet interacting with us in our present day.
Once again, wormholes, time-space continuum, multiverses, multi-dimensions. Who knows anymore? What we thought was science fiction years ago is turning out to be reality.
That's a fact.
Yeah. Like, look at when Jules Verne wrote his book, about submarines, all this in the depths of the oceans. Everybody thought he was a little out to lunch. And yet here we are today with what he talked about, and other science fiction writers who dared to write the possibilities of the future were also looked at as people who were missing a few screws. But it seems that there are those that are gifted, who have a mission to prepare the rest of us for the future, they're laughed at, and yet later on, time proves them right. And
That
what
certainly is the case.
what do you think your gift is here?
Honestly, I have actually put a lot of thought into this, and if there is some sort of grander purpose behind my story, you've probably seen it yourself when it comes to a lot of UFO groups, even ghost hunting, and sometimes even cryptids, where there's almost a religious dogma that has cropped up in a lot of these circles, where it's not necessarily about trying to figure out what's going on anymore. It's essentially forming new religions, and they have found that belief in ghosts and UFOs hits the same region of the brain as religion.
Well, religion itself is filled with ghosts and UFOs. Look at the Bible. You've got Ezekiel's wheel, and then the Holy Ghost, miracles. You've got exorcisms. Everything that is part of what you and I call the paranormal can be found in the Bible.
Exactly. I've seen little bits on social media crop up saying like quantum physicists call it entanglement, spiritualists call it manifestation. It's all the same thing, just different labels.
Do you receive any warning or any signs when you're going to be? First of all, does your daughter have a name?
Yeah, I started calling her by the first name that popped in my head. That was Olivia, and I even asked her about it, and she said she liked it, so it just stuck.
Do you get any feelings, any ideas that Olivia may be coming to visit, and bang, there she is?
Sometimes gets to be a pressure in my head. There's that feeling of, your hair standing on end. There's been times where, say, I would be recording a show and all of a sudden the audio would start cutting out. People, and this would be a live broadcast, and people in the audience would say they would start hearing voices. There would just be these weird weird audio anomalies where I would, for some reason, one guest and I couldn't hear each other, even though we would check our mics on our end. Nothing should have been wrong. And there have been times where you would almost hear this repetitive tone. Like it was almost similar to kind of like mic feedback in a way. And for a lot of people, it would actually cause physical pain. There's been times where I've physically started hearing that, and even people around me would notice that some nearby machines would start glitching up, and I would even have a K2 meter and EMF meter sitting on my person, and essentially I was reading off as radioactive in that moment.
Now, the mother or the young lady that you're involved with now and have been for the last 2.5 years, who lives 7 hours in different times, have you two ever had the experience of having contact with Olivia at the same time?
We have, and with her younger siblings.
How many younger siblings does Olivia have?
At least 2 younger sisters and a younger brother.
Now, are they yours as well?
Well, they all look like me, so it's a pretty safe bet.
Man, you've been a busy guy.
Apparently.
What is the conversation that you have with Olivia and the siblings?
More often than not, it's been just casual check-ins.
Really? Huh?
Just seeing how everybody's doing, my my partner and I, we actually the official confirmation that leads us into the theory of reincarnated star-crossed lovers actually happened when we both had a shared experience, again, mind you, thousands of miles apart, where we both ended up at an ET wedding, and the youngest child at the time ran up to me saying quite excitedly, and she would have been looked to be about 4 or 5, maybe 6 years old, so discretion's not really in a child's vocabulary at that point. She would come up to me all excited saying, "Daddy, Daddy, you finally found Mommy. You found Mommy."
Wow.
Yeah.
Where does Olivia and her younger siblings live?
Is my understanding they are actually on a Galactic Federation mothership, which is supposed to be relatively close to Earth to help kind of monitor things down here while we're in a transition for disclosure. Even though the exact specifics of that seem to be highly debated.
Yeah. I've got about 20 seconds before I have to go to my break. Do you think we're getting any closer to disclosure than we were the last time you and I spoke?
Considering the number of missing scientists and TV presenters all tied to UFO movements, either ending up dead or missing somehow, something's happening.
Stand by. We got to take our break. When we come back, more of this fascinating story with our guest this hour, Dakota Frandsen. His website, www.baldandbonkers.net. I'm Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone, and you're listening to us on the CanCom Broadcast Network and on your hometown radio, Classic 1220 CFAJ AM, here in St. Catharines, streaming at classic1220.ca.
Steps echo the real size. The red on nail light flickers and dies through the hallway. A chill creeps deep. CKTB never sleeps. Ghosts on Yates Street, calling my name. Riding the airwaves, lost in the flame. From Newfoundland shores to the peaks so grand, we walk together united in this land. Every culture, every heart, a story to unfold. In this living tapestry, our pride is bold. With the wheat fields waving under skies so wide, we carry within us the Canadian pride. It's more than a passport, it's a bond, it's a song. To be Canadian, where we all belong. Oh, proud to be Canadian, our spirits soar high, with values that connect us like stars in the sky. We stand for each other through thick and through thin, in this beautiful mosaic, together we win. Oh, proud to be Canadian. Let the anthem...
Welcome back, everyone. Dakota Frandsen is our special guest, baldandbonkers.net. How did you meet your present-day partner?
We actually met through just a online podcast where it was actually Christmas themed at the time.
Okay.
Where we just both happened to be guests. It wasn't any special broadcast or anything. It's just some mutual friends of ours happened to be seeing each other at the time, and we both got dragged on. And as I started to talk about some of my experiences, apparently she started to feel something that was a little too familiar, but she couldn't figure out what it was. So she would eventually reach out and start asking me questions in regards to UFOs. And over time, I just started to notice that her questions were getting to be a little bit too specific for someone who was just casually curious about the topic.
Now, have you met? Physically, I mean.
To the best of our recollection, we may have met briefly in the wind before the relationship started, but no, we have not met yet in person.
What are some of the similarities that you and this young lady share?
A lifetime of just strange events going on with dealings with the paranormal, and both having issues with family members not necessarily believing us that we were having these experiences until we started to figure out how to document it. As we started to become more familiar with each other, we would start trying to line up certain events, and we would find out that we would have weird synchronicities even before we start to meet, where, say, I'd have one experience where I would see UFOs flying around in the sky, and she would be seeing something later that night. Or there would be like one incident where I was actually down in Orlando, Florida, where I was taken on board a craft as basically just as a father-son joyride. And she apparently would see visuals from inside that craft that I was in. Almost like a remote viewing situation.
So up until 2.5 years ago, you two had never met. Now, the Olivia and her siblings, do you believe that they are related to, or that this young lady that you are now involved with and have been for the last 2.5 years is the mother of these children as well?
Right now, with my understanding of it, she has a much higher probability than anybody else I've been with.
Do you two ever communicate in a dream world?
We have on a few occasions, and we have both had some odd things happen when we thought it was just a dream, to where, say, for example, I had a voice recorder going in the middle of the night because I thought I was getting some sort of visits.
Mm-hmm.
There would be a point where the recording all of a sudden would start to be filled with static. I didn't have any radios going on. I didn't have any electronics going. Nothing that should have been causing it. But there would be voices coming through, kind of garbled, but you can tell there was some sort of conversation going on. One of the things she actually started to notice on her end is that whenever she started to have similar experiences, how would I put this? Essentially her power bill would reflect a sudden spike in usage inside the house, like something was draining power.
Wow. So this is something like a reverse of white noise.
Yeah, something along those lines.
Now, have you tried to record any of your encounters with Olivia?
I have, yes, and there have been some successful EVP encounters, as well as, like, say, how I was talking earlier in the show, where there would be UFOs that would start to show up when I was on the phone. I would interrupt the phone call to start recording right away, and I have caught these craft on camera.
What do other people within your close-knit circle think about what is going on? What kind of hypothesis do they have?
that I'm completely nuts for even continuing to pursue this, even though at this point they've seen and me compile enough evidence that something is going on to where they just put their hands up and say, you know what, you do you, don't get kidnapped by the government.
Have you done any hypnosis?
I have actually. I've even consulted with Barbara Lamb at one point to check her hypothesis on some of these things.
And what were the results of the hypnosis sessions?
I try to keep somewhat of a skeptical mind just because I was brought up around law enforcement. So there's a lot of indication where I did have some sort of extraterrestrial past life before being born as Dakota. That has actually turned up some interesting historical results with someone who looks suspiciously like me hanging around Nuremberg around the 1930s and 1940s.
Okay.
So I am trying to look further into that because obviously the implications of that are pretty intense and could dig up a lot of World War II UFO history. But I don't know. It's a little overwhelming, to be honest with you.
I imagine it would be. But it seems like you're doing one heck of a good job of documenting everything, and you're taking it very seriously.
Well, I have to, because gotten to the point where even some of the psychologists that were called in to try to debunk me have started to have their own doubts and continually to watch some of my content just to see what else I find.
When do you think the next time is that you're going to see Olivia and the rest of your family?
The visits are often sporadic. I did actually record something flying around earlier this week. I don't know for sure if it's them, but I'm told that sometime in June will be the next major visit.
I had a guest on last week or the week before who was saying that he gave me a date of June the 20th, I think it was, where there was going to be the opening of a Stargate.
I have heard about that.
Yeah.
Going through the grapevine, yeah.
Right. And that's according to him and his communication with those on the other side of that Stargate, that this will be part of the opening of disclosure where the disbelief and the skepticism in UFOs and ETs will cease to exist. So that's going to be very interesting to watch.
I would have to agree.
Yeah. Why do you think disclosure is taking so long? Like, you're not the only person that has had these experiences. You know, thousands upon thousands have had ET encounters, ET sightings, alien abductions. And yet, according to the powers to be, no, they're not real. Everybody can't be wrong.
You're right. And it does get to be a little frustrating sometimes because you would have all these individuals come out saying, oh, it's going to happen by this date. Oh, it's going to happen by this date. Yet by the time those dates actually come, it doesn't seem like anything's actually happening. Or better yet, there's some new major celebrity, scandal that's flooding the headlines to where everybody's easily distracted. As far as why is it's taking forever, you got to admit, if there's an ounce of truth behind some of the technology, some of the revelations out there, there's a lot of people who are going to be losing a lot of money when this information comes out.
And it's a shame that money is blocking the advancement of humanity.
Exactly.
Stand by, my friend. You and I have to take our final break. And Exonation, if you'd like to find out more about our guest, if you'd like to listen to his show, for all that information, go to his website, baldandbonkers.net. This is the X-Zone. I'm Rob McConnell, and Dakota and I will be back as we wrap up this hour here in the X-Zone, where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. And don't forget, we're here Monday through Friday from 10 p.m. until midnight, trying to understand the ununderstandable, if that makes any sense. Because in the world that many of us live in, fact is fiction and fiction is reality. We'll be back on the other side of this break, so whatever you do, don't go away. More to come.
From Newfoundland shores to the peaks so grand, we walk together united in this land. Every culture, every heart, a story to unfold. In this living tapestry, our pride is bold. With the wheat fields waving under skies so wide, we carry within us the Canadian pride. It's more than a passport, it's a bond, it's a song. To be Canadian, where we all belong. Oh, proud to be Canadian, our spirit. Blue light glow in a darkened room, a silent house, digital doom. Little eyes locked on a screen, living life through a machine. Mom and dad in the same old place, scrolling worlds but no embrace. Dinner's cold, no words are said. Another night, the silence spreads. We built the cage, then blamed the bars, pointing fingers at the stars. But truth don't hide behind a screen, it lives in what we've never seen. No praise is a child, no screen shows love, no algorithm sent from above. You can't outsource a heart, can't download a soul. When the damage is done, who's in control? No praise is a child, no feed makes a home, no signal replaces flesh and bone. So before you point blame out into the wild, look in the mirror. No praise is a child.
Dakota, has your experiences with Olivia and the way that you have connected with your present day partner, have they affected the way that you conduct your investigations into the paranormal?
Majorly. To be honest with you, there's aspects when it comes to how a lot of investigators conduct themselves that honestly it makes me disillusioned with the field itself.
And what would they be?
It's the utter pettiness that goes to flow. I mean, I'm no one to judge. I've been involved in film, TV, radio, books. I've done nearly everything that a lot of these people are wanting to reach. And honestly, when you, sure, those adventures may be fun. You know, I do enjoy them. But when you don't have love, when you don't have, you know, people that show that they support you, that they back you, it doesn't really mean anything. And I'll be honest, there's points where I kind of withdrew myself from a lot of circles after myself and my significant other were both targeted from some really nasty individuals that just didn't like how we were getting the attention and they weren't.
Jealousy.
Among other things, yes.
So because you were being honest and sharing the experiences that you had, they would cause you problems?
Yeah, there would be a lot of people and who would essentially try to blend my story into their own.
Oh
And
gosh.
if it w- if it was one thing, if something about what I said maybe triggered something in
Mm-hmm.
them, that's one thing. Okay, I'm not going to judge people about that. That's how I started to figure out how to put things together before I really started to network out. But when it gets to be the point where these individuals were just going full on obsessive cyber stalking, attacking people who were dealing with cancer, even
Ah,
bringing kids into the mix, that just
it's all wrong.
it is, and it's being enabled in so many ways to where I've started to limit who I honestly engage with.
And I don't blame you. I really don't blame you, because here you are, you're being honest. You're sharing an experience that is very close to you. Your shields are down because you're exchanging this experience that you've had in order to let people know that there are others out there that may have the same experience that you have had, or an experience like it, that because they find it so out of the ordinary that they're keeping it closed. And yet here you are saying, hey, I'm here, this is my story, I'll listen to yours.
Exactly, and that's what I've tried to make the name Bald and Bonkers as sort of an anthem. I personally help these people get their stories out there if they want my help. No matter how crazy, no matter how much it makes you feel like you're going to pull out your hair,
Yeah.
it may seem. It's not going to be until we start to shed the masks that we wear, we start to truly embrace who we are, that regardless of whether or not we get to have these experiences, that's when life itself just becomes so much more fulfilling.
I believe that it's the people who are out doing what you have an honest, true passion for, who have the experiences, who have the contacts, have the content to 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 see far beyond what is right in front of these other people, that, like you said, they take part of your story and weave it into theirs. It's because they do not have the ability to be honest. They do not have the ability to go out and seek for themselves. They're nothing else but sofa quarterback paranormal investigators who just sit back, surf the internet, and hope that they can build a story based on true accounts like yours.
It does seem to be pretty prevalent,
Yeah.
and it honestly needs to be confronted because it's being enabled in ways that should not even have entered the picture, yet here we are.
I think that a sign of the times is with all this paratourism now that's popping up all over the place, where people who have the ability to buy haunted homes or haunted locations are purchasing the property and then charging exorbitant amounts for investigation teams and tourists to go through it. Like the paranormal's become like a money grab.
It honestly is. And being that there's not really a lot of regulation, and when you actually go to look into how to potentially prove certain things like psychic abilities and all that,
Sure.
to where mainstream science would be satisfied with the test results, there's a lot of people that would not want to try to push themselves that far because of the medical scrutiny probably have to go under.
That's necessary though. In the paranormal, it's come to the point now where people think that they'll get into the paranormal and they'll do something, they'll get that $1 billion TV contract that never happens. And it's a cash grab. You look at the same thing when it comes to Bigfoot, UFOs, treasure hunting, ghosts, and the list goes on. It's just gotten out of control. And I think that we're coming to the point now where the paranormal is going to implode. And there's going to be very few people standing when the smoke settles. And I'm going to place my bets that you're going to be one of the people that will be remaining standing.
Honestly, Rob, one of the things I've noticed with a lot of individuals, and it happens with some of the better folks out there as well as the ones causing a lot of problems, there is aspects of the paranormal where, there's a lot of people who were already marginalized for some odd reason in society that go to find this type of stuff. And in a lot of ways, they don't confront their own inner demons before trying to take on, the actual ones that could physically harm them.
I remember years ago, Dakota, when the paranormal and people like you, myself, Art, when he was around, and other oldies that are still around. You're just a youngster compared to us old guys. But we were sought out by people who've had the experiences because they knew that they could talk to us and we wouldn't laugh at them. We wouldn't scorn them. We wouldn't make light of what they were going through or what they had encountered. But now, no one is safe, except for the very few. And we need to get that credibility back. And we need to let people know that, yes, there are people, there are shows that you could contact that will take you seriously and will not use and abuse you for your story.
Oh, I wholeheartedly agree. And while I understand there's a lot of people out there who are casually just going to explore certain haunted places just for the fun of it, I'm not necessarily dogging them. There's a lot of others out there that are clearly being disrespectful to the situation. And, there's people that, criticize me for not live streaming certain investigations when honestly, I don't feel right doing so. If I'm walking around a historical site, sure, why not? No big deal. But say one of the most recent examples was a young lady who apparently had issues with a stalker trying to take her own life on multiple occasions, only for the stalker to potentially have been scared away by what I can only describe as a biblically accurate angel showing itself and scaring him off. Sure, I could talk about that situation just to kind of illustrate what's all out there and why I say if you're going to do this, explore your own mental health first, because there's going to be some things that you're going to come across that are just truly messed up. But as far as going to broadcast it, no.
Well, that's because there are people like yourself, and I hope I'm in the same category, that have morals, who believe in journalistic integrity.
Yeah, but morals don't bring views now, do they?
I think they bring more views than people would like to admit, because sensationalism may sell, may get you clicks. But come the end of the day, you've got to look at yourself in the mirror, and I'd rather look at myself in the mirror and know that I've been helpful, that I've been honest, and that I've done my job not only as a member of the media, but as a human being.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And honestly, there's been a lot of self-reflection I've had to do, and maybe it's just the life shock of turning 30 that inspired this, but it's gotten to a point where I would much rather know that even if I completely screwed up a situation, I would like to look at myself at the end of the day and know that I did my best with what I had.
You're a good man, Dakota. I'm proud to call you a friend. The time has come when we must say so long for tonight. Continued success. Do the world a favor, don't change. Because your honesty and your integrity makes Bald and Bonkers the great organization that it soon will be. Take care, my good friend.
You as well, my friend.
Good night now. That's it for tonight. I'll be back tomorrow night, 10 o'clock, right here on the CanCom Broadcast Network and 1220 CFAJ.